Good afternoon. Welcome to the Coaching and Mentoring Strategies for Effectiveness webinar. My name is Patrick Smith. I am your host facilitator, and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Mentoring Services and Leadership Development, as well as the Director of the FASE Mentoring Program at Indiana University Bloomington campus. FASE stands for Faculty and Staff for Student Excellence. Again, welcome to today's webinar. We are going to go quickly over the agenda, and prior to that, here's just a little background about myself, just so that people have a better idea who I am and some of my background experiences. And today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send you the link so that you can access the recorded version of this webinar when it is at the conclusion of this webinar later today. Also, I just want to let you know that for those of you who may come in late or may reserve the right to observe the webinar at a later time, you may want to have some note paper handy just so that you can kind of take notes and during the reflection periods of the webinar. So here's the agenda. We'll be going over the objectives. We're going to talk about coaching and mentoring in terms of various definitions, and then consider some coaching and mentoring strategies, concepts, and how they are applied in your mentoring practice. And here are the objectives. The objective is to identify and apply the following in terms of your mentoring practices: coaching and mentoring definitions, coaching and mentoring responsibilities, and coaching and mentoring strategies. When we talk about coaching and mentoring strategies, specifically we're talking about establishing the relationship. We're talking about also, from a responsibility standpoint, what are the roles of each, the mentor and the mentee. Many of you have had questions in the past asking about, well, what is the mentee role? Oftentimes we talk so much about the mentor, but what about the mentee? With the mentee, the mentee webinar will actually be given next week. We'll send out relevant information for that webinar shortly. However, today's webinar will primarily focus upon the mentor. And from time to time, I will be looking down to take advantage of some notes, some additional notes that I may need to refer to that are really important for you to be aware of. Okay, so we first want to talk about what is coaching and mentoring. This is really very, very important to know the distinction between coaching and mentoring. Oftentimes, the two are used interchangeably. The two are often confused with one or the other. So for the purposes of this particular webinar, we're going to look at some of those definitions. We're going to have an opportunity to do some reflection, to determine which one applies to you in your mentoring practices, and when is some good time to apply coaching as opposed to mentoring as a strategy. So it'll first be helpful to consider what they are. So if you take a look at this particular definition, you'll notice that coaches do not advise, but primarily they serve as consultants. Okay? The focus is very goal-directed and results-oriented. So if you're thinking about going from point A to point B, that is a coach. So minimal discussion in terms of trying to guide, trying to provide advice, but more so giving instructions and helping the person to improve, perhaps, as you'll later see in some other definitions, in their performance. Here's another definition. This definition focuses more on placing greater responsibility for learning on the mentee, allowing for techniques that empowers the mentee to develop solutions as they grow. The focus is greater responsibility for the mentee, greater empowerment for the mentee in terms of their learning, as also helping them to develop solutions as they develop and progress along their journey. So this definition focuses on mentor as a trusting guide, providing support, advice, and encouragement. As you can see, that this role is certainly less consultative and non-directive. Less emphasis upon consulting, more emphasis on providing guidance and support. Take a moment and take a look at this particular definition. A little longer, but a little bit more detailed in some aspects. This particular definition of mentoring focuses more on the enhancing the mentee's skills and knowledge, growth and development for the benefit of the organization. This particular definition has the organization in mind. Could be a company, could be your company as an entrepreneur. This is something that might resonate more with you than, say, some of the other coaching and or mentoring definitions that we're going to consider. But also, more importantly, it considers outside influences. What is the mentee going through in terms of their life? What type of life events might have an impact upon performance? In addition to focusing on skills development, knowledge, it also considers the person's private life and how it may be impacting the mentee's ability to progress. So we also have a definition of business coaching and mentoring. We're going to take a look at what this means. Now, here we go. So here we have a definition, a business, more specific business definition of coaching and mentoring. Business coaching, assuming that the mentee has the mentee has the necessary capability and helps them discover themselves. Business mentoring targets the personal development of the mentees who are adept in their basic technical skills but need additional assistance in other skill areas, expertise, or knowledge. As you can see, even these two definitions have some overlapping applications, overlapping in terms of their pure definition as it relates to some of the other definitions as it's been given. Business mentors really utilize their knowledge and skills gained from years of experience to provide their mentees with advice, helping them to develop in their cultural capital, providing support and even encouragement. The benefit for the mentee or entrepreneur is to access a valuable resource that can assist them in furthering their business venture. So what we're going to do now is skip ahead a couple of slides. We're going to have a reflection activity. And if you're observing this in its recorded format, you may just want to pause for a while, for a second, pardon me, and just kind of take a look at the reflection activity that we're going to embark upon. And I'm just going to skip ahead a couple slides here. Here we go. We have a table that's split into two sections. The top portion of this table focuses on definitions. It's at your upper left-hand corner of the table. The second portion of the form, toward the middle of this particular table, will focus on underpinning concepts and principles. Love for you to take a look at the definitions that are given, and then take a look in terms of the underpinning concepts and definitions and how they juxtapose each other. And then we're going to come back, and I'm just going to give you a second here to take a look. If you're looking at the recorded version of this recording, of this webinar, pardon me, you can stop, take a look at it, make any notes that you need to, and then just resume the recording when you are ready to proceed. Okay, so when you consider the information on the table, we want to take an opportunity to reflect on the definitions of mentoring that have been given. And here are the bullet points that we really want you to focus on. I want you to decide which of the definitions in the slide, the table that we just mentioned, really connects to you. Indicate your reasons why, and also address how does the definition relate to your own experiences as a business mentor. And what issues or areas do you think are missing from any of the definitions? And you can also refer to the previous definitions of coaching and mentoring that we just reviewed previously in the previous slides. Okay, so now that you had a moment to reflect, we want to hear from some experts. We're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to see that and I'll just come here. Here we are. We're going to see that coaching and mentoring have specific, in their specific definition, there are some descriptors that I think will help you rather quickly in terms of determining the difference between the two. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to look at a series of videos of experts on coaching and mentoring and hear what they have to say in terms of the differences and their definitions. So we'll go to the first video.
Many times when people approach us to ask about executive coaching, they will at times compare it to mentoring. Mentoring and coaching are two very different relationships. The mentor traditionally looks out over a longer horizon, 5 to 10 years, and they're able to share from having been there first, previous life experience. The job of the coach is to have much more of a short-term focus, much more intense, ensuring the growth process of that individual in a shorter period of time. 5 to 10 years, within the next year, two very different time horizons.
Okay, so as you can see, this gentleman provided a very specific definition of coaching and mentoring in terms of their differences. Much of his explanation kind of lines up, I will say, lines up rather well with the definitions or the descriptors that you see on the screen currently. Let's go to the next video and see what this expert has to say.
A mentor is someone who's been where you are, normally professionally. So say you're a senior manager in a business, your mentor will be someone who 3 or 4 years ago had your job or had the job above yours in the same industry, maybe even in the same company. And so what they can share with you is what they did. You know, sometimes you feel like you're reinventing the wheel. There's no point. There's other people who've been there, who've done it, who can share the wisdom of their experience. That's really different to a coach. A coach generally hasn't been where you are. They may not know anything about your industry. It may all be foreign territory to them. Their expertise lies somewhere else. Their expertise is in drawing out your wisdom rather than sharing their own.
Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and go to the last video, and then we'll have some comments if there are any.
I think there's no limits. And I think that the reason that there's no limits is because you're not really coaching the area of your life. You're coaching yourself. You're being coached at a core level. If you're receiving coaching and it's very much about goal setting and action planning and taking steps, then I think that the coach is missing the real issue, because yes, a coach can help you with that, and as long as you're working with that coach, you continue to achieve. But as soon as you stop working with the coach, you stop achieving. So really successful coaching is about coaching what's inside. Considering, what are the obstacles that I'm putting in my own way? What are the assumptions that I'm making that are holding me back? What is it in the way that I see the world, in the way that I think about myself in the world, that is an obstacle in addressing that?
Okay, so we see that there are distinct differences between coaching and mentoring, and at the same time, there is some overlap. So what's really important to acknowledge here is that coaching is very performance-driven, focuses on agenda, task-related, focus on processes, and it also involves action plans. The goals and the responsibility, the accountability are very important when it comes to coaching. And in addition, it really focuses on getting a person from point A to point B. Mentoring, on the other hand, focuses on facilitation, affirmation. It also considers life circumstances that may be impacting performance as well. Also, there's opportunity to pass along knowledge and skills from the more experienced person to the person who's being mentored. Our next slide is a very nice slide because it shows in this Venn diagram where the specific areas where coaching and mentoring actually overlap. So while there are some distinct differences, there are some overlaps in many different ways. What's important to understand is that mentoring is not static, rather it's a fluid activity. In some cases, the application of it may depend upon the mentee and the circumstances that are involved. Please do not feel boxed in when it comes to coaching or mentoring or how you're applying any of these concepts. Because the more nuanced you are in either or, the more effective you will be as a mentor. So traditionally, what has been your role or responsibility in the coach or mentor relationship? Think about this for a second. The roles and responsibility of the business coach or mentor must clearly be understood and defined and carried out precisely. This is important because they play a key role in the success of the mentoring relationship. These roles play an important part during each phase of the mentoring relationship, and there are three areas that we really need to focus on when it comes to establishing the coaching and the mentoring relationship with your mentee. First of all, establishing the relationship is very key in how the relationship will carry itself out. The idea here is to make strong connections and to alleviate any of the fears that a mentee might have. Clarifying the roles is the next area. The question you need to ask yourself, have you established clear expectations or roles between yourself and your business mentee? And exactly what are your roles? What is the role for you as the business mentor and also for your mentee? And then the next area is be sure to set expectations. Have you established a business agreement, a mentoring agreement, if you will, a partnership? Do you have an established, agreed upon agreement with your mentee? And you may want to even ask yourself, well, why do I need an agreement in the first place? And what should such an agreement consist of? So let's start with establishing the relationship. Establishing the relationship with your mentee is a crucial first step, ensuring a successful mentor and mentee relationship. The first meeting is crucial in laying the foundation for future meetings. In addition to that, it's also crucial for outlining the mentor-mentee roles, establishing goals, and determining if the pairing is a good match. This is extremely important. The key to establishing a good relationship certainly involves the following. So when establishing the mentoring relationship, make sure that you meet on neutral territory, somewhere that's comfortable for you and it's also comfortable for the mentee. You need to quickly ascertain whether or not this is a good match, this is a good fit, if this is going to work. And there are ways in which you can do that. You need to also assess the mentee's strengths and goals and their aspirations. Establish and alleviate any fears your mentee may have, and also encourage and reassure your mentee. Oftentimes, they are somewhat intimidated from a standpoint of how they're going to move forward or even taking that first step. If your mentee is already established in their business venture, then you may want to focus more on goals, their strength, or their vision, and making sure that they have the proper tools and resources to make sure that they're going to be successful as they move forward. So when initially, establishing the relationship with your business mentee for the first time, there are some tips you may want to consider. In addition, many of these strategies can go a long way in maintaining the sustainability of the relationship between you and your mentee. So here is a table of discussion strategies for effective mentoring. I'd like for you to take a look at this for a moment and determine which one of these areas really resonates with you, or if you've even utilized any of these tips in your mentoring or coaching practices. And also you need to understand and be able to ascertain whether or not they've been effective for you. And if they have not been effective for you, then there's some questions that you might need to consider as you move forward. Now just take a moment to take a look at the table. Okay, so for instance, let's take the first one under the table, under the column labeled discussion topics. Get to know each other. Okay, one of the best ways in which to do this is to obtain some advanced background or information on your business mentee. Okay, you might want to know what their gender is, what their business, what is exactly their experience as a venture capitalist. And as an approach, the idea is to try to establish common ground and exchange contact information in the process. As you discuss mentoring, you want to ask your mentee about their past mentoring relationships. What did they learn? Were they successful? Were they fruitful? Did they benefit from the relationship? If not, you may want to ask them why. And you also want to share your own experiences, because I think that really helps with the trust process. You want to make sure that there's some mutual discussion here. There's some give and take when it comes to sharing information. You never want to appear as if you know it all in the very beginning, but you want to really, really hone in on your listening. You want to listen twice as much as you speak at this stage of establishing the relationship. And number 6, let's kind of skip down here. Number 6, be honest on what you can deliver and discuss expectations. Extremely, extremely important. Ask for feedback and discuss how this impacts the relationships and ensure confidentiality. Also, as far as the approach is concerned, what are you willing and capable of contributing to the relationship? You want to be honest. You want to make sure that you're upfront with what you're able to deliver, and you want to be able to deliver on what you promise, because it's not going to be good for the relationship. It will make your mentee lose confidence and trust in you if you cannot deliver. And you also want to talk about options and growth opportunities. Ask your mentee how you can help them to be successful and achieve their goals. So in this case, you want to be supportive and you want to be encouraging. You want to help that person develop and maintain that confidence that they have in themselves. And where they lack confidence, you want to try to build them up. Establishing, I kind of skipped around here a little bit, establishing a schedule is extremely important from the standpoint, again, it's going to set the tone. You want to make sure you have an understanding how often you're going to meet, when and where you're going to meet. You also may want to develop an idea of what are the different modes of communication that you'll use, whether it be email, face-to-face meeting, which is typically the best, but not always possible, or if you're going to use texting or any other kinds of technology that will allow you to communicate and also discuss how the progress is going. Setting expectations and clarifying roles. That is to say, what is your role as the business mentor? Have you established clear expectations, and what is your role versus your mentees? Now, we won't spend a great deal of time discussing the mentees' roles because we're going to do that in next week's webinar. However, it's very important to be able to line up the mentees' roles as well as the mentor's role, compare and contrast the two. As you can see, the mentor really does focus on teaching. It really does focus on, as you can see, through the various bullets. Listening and facilitating. This is a guiding process. Asking probing questions. Who, what, where, when, why, how. Those open-ended questions that really delve into the mentee's mind and really helps draw out what's going on and guiding them to the solution that they're looking for, giving them ownership. That's what's really, really important here. Sharing your professional educational experience, and also guiding them and helping them to develop the critical thinking skills that they need that will help them to develop those skills so that they can be self-reliant as they move on in their business venture. So in setting expectations, you should have a mentor agreement. This really helps solidify the partnership. This is important because it demonstrates not only are you professional and intentional in your practice, but you're also serious. It also helps determine the importance of the relationship, helps to establish that, and it's mutually binding. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the bullets here. So if you don't have an agreement, you may want to consider establishing an agreement with your mentee, if nothing else for accountability purposes. And then you may ask the question, well, why should you discuss such an agreement? As I outlined before, it really demonstrates and shows that you're serious and that you're a professional and that you're setting boundaries to the relationship, which you both should abide by. And then what should a mentor agreement contain? We'll cover those points in a moment. So here are some other points to consider. Setting mentor-mentee expectations through a formalized agreement is extremely helpful in laying the foundation for an effective and long-term relationship. Careful consideration should be given in respect to the setting, that's to say mentor-mentee roles, expectations, and certainly for the purpose of establishing trust. Moreover, having a contract has the following benefits. It allows parties to define, understand the nature of the relationship. Again, we talked about being professional, setting those boundaries. It helps you to guide, direct, and also to encourage your mentee. It establishes accountability. Are they following up with their goals? Are they meeting their goals? Okay. If they're not demonstrating the responsibility, if they're not being accountable, then you need to really understand what type of communication needs to take place to get them to become accountable, to get them to become responsible. Because mentoring, while it is a two-way process, the bulk of the responsibility is upon the mentee. And again, it allows for confidentiality. So here's some points I think you should be aware of in terms of what a mentor-mentee agreement should contain. The meeting specifics. How often you're going to meet, when you're going to meet, okay. Who's responsible for the agenda, which that is the mentee's responsibility. Okay. Roles and responsibility. Accountability measures. Again, you're talking about those SMART goals. Confidentiality of the relationship, and also grounds for terminating the relationship. Not every mentoring relationship is going to be perfect. There are going to be problems. There are going to be challenges. However, in next week's webinar, we will talk about how to identify when a mentee is a good match, as well as what are grounds for terminating the mentoring relationship. So here are some open-ended questions to consider as we come to a close for this week's webinar. You may want to ask your mentee, what do you want to accomplish from this relationship? What do we need to ensure the confidential nature of the relationship? How will we determine if the relationship is effective or successful? And what do you think your mentee roles entail? Also some questions to ask, for yourself that is. What other questions can you think of that will make good open-ended questions? Also, What questions have you asked of your mentee? So that concludes the webinar for this week, and we certainly hope that you join us next week. Again, this webinar is recorded. We will be sending out the link so that you can access the recorded webinar at your leisure. My name is Patrick Smith, and again, I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Mentoring Services and Leadership Development here at Indiana University of Bloomington. It was a pleasure speaking with you. It was a pleasure interacting with you, and I certainly hope that you join us next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me, email me, and I'll get back with you as quickly as I can. Have a good day.